Welcome to Mathenatic. We are busy revising content for paper 1. In an arithmetic sequence, the third term is -4 and the seventh term is -20. How many terms will add up to -140? So before we start to answer this question, let us just go through the details. If we see arithmetic sequence, we know it's the Tn formula, and that is equals to a plus n minus 1d. So that's what the word sequence means. Next, they say that the third term is -4, so term 3 is equal to -4. And the seventh term is equals to -20, so term 7 is -20. But then they say how many terms, so that tells me we need to find an n value, will add up to -140. Now this part here where it says will add up to is referring to Sn. So we know the sum of terms is -140. So we have a combination of Tn and Sn in this question. In my first step, I want to represent term 3, which is -4, and term 7, in terms of an arithmetic sequence. So can you see that if I use 3 in the place of n, then I have a plus 3 minus 1d is equal to -4. And if I use 7 in the place of n, then I have a plus 7 minus 1d is equal to -20. And what that allows me to do is to find two equations in terms of a and in terms of d. And with these two equations, we can find the a value and we can find the common difference between terms. So in order to solve for a, I take the first equation and I move the 2d to the right-hand side. So therefore, a is equal to -4 minus 2d. And what I'll do is I'll replace the a in the second equation with my equation for a. So instead of saying a plus 6d is equals to -20, I replace that a with -4 minus 2d plus 6d is equal to -20. Now we have an equation that only consists out of d's, and that allows me to solve for d. So I take the -4 to the right-hand side, and that becomes +4, which simplifies to -16. And -2d plus 6d simplifies to 4d. When I divide both sides by 4, I have d as -4. Now, to get the a value, I substitute the d in that equation with -4. So a is equals to -4 minus 2d multiplied with a value of d, which is -4. So therefore a is equal to 4. For the next part of our solution, we move to Sn, because they told us in the information that the terms add up to -140. So this equation we can find on our formula sheet, and we want to find how many terms. So we want to solve for n. So we replace Sn with -140. We don't know the value of n. We know that a is equal to 4, and we know that d is equal to -4. In the next step, I multiplied both sides by 2. So on the right-hand side, the 2's will cancel out. What you'll also notice is that I cleaned up the inside of the brackets. So 2 times 4 is equals to 8. And then -4 multiplied with n is -4n. And -1 multiplied with -4 is +4. And when I add like terms together, I have brackets that say 12n minus 4n. So for the last few steps, I would solve a quadratic equation. So let us see what I did. First, if I say n multiplied by 12, I get 12n. And next, n multiplied by -4n is -4n squared. And this 280 comes from moving that 280 to the right-hand side. And now I have an equation which is in standard form. Now at this point, you can use your calculator and skip some of these steps in order to solve for n. But if you wanted to, you can also factorize this equation. What I did from this step to the next is I divided everywhere by -4. So 0 divided by -4 was 0. Our first term would be n squared. Then we'll have 12 divided by -4, which is -3n. And 280 divided by -4 is -70. And again, you can use either your calculator or the quadratic formula to solve for n. But for me, this was quite an easy trinomial to factorize because I have the factors of 70, which is 7 and 10, which can add or subtract to -3. So therefore, I have my two factors, and with that, I can solve for n. So n is either 10 or n is equals to -7. But because this is an arithmetic sequence, we start counting from term 1 all the way to term 2, term 3, and so on. So we can never have a negative value as n. So we reject that answer. Therefore, n is equal to 10. So 10 terms will add up to -140. Thank you for watching. Support us by liking and subscribing to Mathenatic. Check out our Digistore for math study notes, with free downloads for statistics and financial math. Follow the link in the video description.